bit scary, but never ever thought I'd come here to work.
Immediately, Aradale struck me as being completely different.
Every Saturday night's tied up with ghost tours here.
Aradale is a lunatic asylum. We know from TV programs and movies and books that lunatic asylums are not good places.
I enjoyed what I did, so I was just kept on as a maintenance. And they still had control of the site, even though it was empty from 1993 to 2001. So the whole place was empty. Probably like most people that got jobs here, you knew somebody that could get you a job here. And I just filled a position that became vacant. I thought I was here until I retired, and which is probably what most people thought, but I had nowhere to go, so I didn't put my hand up to take any packages or anything like that, and just stayed until they told me I had to go. I dreamed everywhere. Yeah, on my own from 95 through till 2001. It was just a whole big empty space on your own, and a lot of people said, how do you do it? And I think if you enjoy coming to work and enjoy what you do, it's easy. Storm water come down through the downpipes, that beautiful fresh water. Trouble is, you got to remember you're dealing with people with mental illness, and you'd have people upstairs, feces, they throw it out the window, contaminate the water. Staff and patients are all getting typhoid, all this sort of stuff, and they were dying from it. Couldn't work out why. It was from the water. Margaret. Didn't they tell you about Margaret last time? You obviously didn't meet her. Margaret's the ghost.
Aradale changed a lot over time, and so to look at it as was it a good or a bad place, there's no answer to that question. It was open in 1867. Now that's almost 100 years before medication come in. So primary treatments back then are not nice. Like we could say that sort of stuff, very, very barbaric now. Having said that, it was probably, for a lot of the people who were in there, even in those days, better than lying in the gutter, being kicked or potentially just murdered at night time. They had a bed and they had food and, to some degree, a little bit of care.
When you're looking at mental health, or mental ill health, things have changed over the years.
Was a well-functioning asylum. They're certainly not the best one. No, we've got in the 1800s, 1800s particularly, Aradale had a very, very nasty reputation. There's a report out called the Zox Report, 1884, that came out, that said that Victoria's lunatic asylums were some of the worst in the British Empire, and it pointed Arad as being the worst, and sort of that continued that legacy for a while. At the end, I do think, certainly at the end, the last 20 years, Aradale became a place that was really trying to deal with their past and making improvements. But then it sort of shut down. So
it wasn't called Aradale initially. It was called the Ararat Lunatic Asylum, of course. Later on, they changed it to the Ararat Mental Hospital and Training Centre. They finally decided it was politically incorrect to call someone mental or a lunatic. So in 1959, had a competition in town. Mrs. Hanson won the competition. She came up with the name Aradale.
It's extremely regulated. There's a total control. You got up at the same time, you got breakfast at the same time. You did everything the same as everyone else around you every day, and that's a mechanical way to live. The treatments, the lifestyle was horrific.
At its peak, there were nearly 1,100 patients and upwards of 400 staff working shifts to look after them up there. It became one of the largest lunatic asylums in Australia, most certainly the largest one in Victoria. No one's ever doubted that. When it was Aradale, there was a winery, there was a piggery, a dairy. They had all sorts up there. They had over 600 acres of farmland, so they grew all their own fruit and veggies, grew all their own stock, sheep, cattle and pigs. So it was a busy place up there. In fact, at its peak, you could have closed down Ararat and Aradale would have survived because it was self-sufficient. It was a town.
In the 1800s, it was a garbage bin for anyone who did not fit in, and that's like Victorian standards are pretty tight.
Some of them were violent, some were very noisy, some were just quiet, placid people. So it's just just like everyday life.
So you've got people who are suffering from serious mental illness.
People that were born with a disability.
Epilepsy, Down syndrome.
Up until the 1960s, or 1970s, you could be thrown in Aradale for being homosexual, male or female.
Others that were alcoholics and drug addicts.
If a guy wanted to get rid of his wife, now, if he got two doctors to cooperate, whether she was insane or not, all he needed was two signatures on a piece of paper and in she went. It took 7 or 8 signatures to get her out. A lot of women went into Aradale with postnatal depression, that was a mental disorder, and they died up there.
Psychotics who have just murdered their entire families with axes.
If anyone was different to what they consider was a normal person in those early days, you'd be hidden away.
Like, because there's people up there that were normal, say like we are, and been put in there and driven mad.
It was just all lumped in. They didn't really come up with a concept for separating the real criminally insane, like the criminally insane, Hannibal Lecter, from Down syndrome children up until 1884, and that's when you open J Ward down the road in the old prison. It is J Ward of the Aradale Lunatic Asylum.
It was said to be government policy to shut down a lot of these institutes and take them out of living in an institutionalised environment and put them back into the community.
This main push for it to be shut down started in 93, the last patient was taken out in 94.
The idea was to close Aradale down.
A lot of people point the finger straight to Jeff Kennett. He was just the mouthpiece of a change in how we deal with mental illness that was coming out of England and America, and that was a move from the big institutions like Aradale to try and deinstitutionalise these people.
You just imagine it now, and you've got people that have been institutionalised out in the community.
Aradale's population went from 9,000 down to about 4,500 people.
A lot of staff aren't willing to really talk about it. I don't know why. I don't know what went on, whether they experimented and did all sorts of things up there, we don't know.
But I looked at Aradale and thought, man, that's one of the best ghost tours in the world.
Never thought much about ghosts or anything like that initially, but things have changed, of course.
Yeah. I've never seen any sign of it, but as I said, it tells a good story.
I was the biggest sceptic you'd ever find when I started doing the ghost tours. I've changed my mind completely.
A lot of people say, what's haunted mean? And he said, when we say a building is haunted, what we mean is that the building has gone insane. Aradale's lunatic asylum, damn straight it's insane. It's very haunted.
You get different people that say they get a sensation when they walk in here. I've heard them talk on the tours that they say feel as if there's someone dragging them down or pushing them not to go in there and to stop them going in there.
I've seen things in here, heard things in here, felt things in here, even smelt things in here I can't explain.
It's got a vibe to itself that's very different to any other building. I estimate somewhere between 10 to 15,000 people died in Aradale over 140 years, and I don't think there's another building in Australia that can say that. I have had certainly some experiences that have made me question my understanding of reality at times.
And a lot of strange things happen in this place.
I went once and no one going in.
If some people see or feel things, you know, who knows? Who am I to say?
I suppose everyone believes what they want to believe.
And there's ghosts in there.
People love being in the building because because it does scare them, and people do like being scared. We all like being scared.
We started getting inquiries from people from paranormal groups wanting to come in and investigate the place.
The building itself is incredibly big and intimidating, and it is a labyrinth. And I mean, we've designed out to it to completely disorient the customer. I'm a fairly simple man. I measure the success of my business by screams. A good tour is like maybe 7 or 8 screams. Aradale, I can get 40 to 50. It's so dark. It's one of the darkest buildings. When you're walking down a corridor that's got 200 metres of solitary confinement cells for psychotic murderers, don't really need to say anything. You just walk people around and it freaks them out.
Paranormal group came in here, I think it was the last time they visited. They'd been about eight times. And the 2 ringleaders wanted to try on the restraining jackets. We stopped up the top to watch what was going to happen. They went right down to the door at the far end, and one of the guys suddenly went down. You would swear someone had actually jumped on his shoulders, and he's screaming out, get off me, you bastard, get off me, get off me. They went over and pulled his shirt down at the back, and there was a bite mark on his neck. They took him into the dining room where the lights were on, pulled his shirt down at the back, and there was nothing there. So how do you explain a bite mark that's there, and then it's not there? There's some of the things I can't explain in this place.
One night I was going through there, I got to the I was going through the bottom level of the men's ward, opened a fire door because mates wanted to have a look at that part of the building I don't normally go into. Walked in, stench of death. I was like, oh, something's died in here. Get to the next fire door, so I'm sort of in a small stairwell coming down like this, and I'm at the bottom, come through a fire door, there's another one, trying to get this door open, and it was stuck, and these, you've been, the keys are old and muck around. Struggling with that one, then as I'm standing in this room, holding my nose, footsteps walk straight down the stairwell behind me, straight out the fire door that I've just come through. By this stage, I'm pushed up against the wall, turned around in a bit of a panic, got the key through the next door and out. Went back in there, no smell, no footsteps, nothing. That was probably the closest I've come to almost panic. I've had other things happen, like I'll regularly wander through the building, make sure all the doors are locked, come back the next morning after I know no one else has been there, and they're all lined up and stuff like that. That's just Aradale. Our eventual goal is to get that, to a level like Port Arthur, where it's doing ghost tours every night and doing day tours every day, and make that, quite a big, well-known destination for Australian history, because it is so weird.
It's just a shame to see the building going the way it is. It's such a majestic building, and it'd be lovely to see it preserved, but it's not going to happen. So, well, I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. You'd need that much money to do it, and unfortunately, no one's got the money to take it on. So it'll just deteriorate.
A pity to see the building just decaying.
I think Aradale is perfect the way it is. If we could somehow stop it from getting any more deteriorated than what it is, but we don't want to restore it because, well, I've got a vested interest. That's the perfect building for a ghost tour.
There are too few grand old buildings around, and I think everything should be done to conserve and preserve those.
A lot of people reckon they're probably better off just bulldozing it down. But then a lot of people are fascinated by it, and most people in Ararat over the years have had someone that has either worked here or been involved here, so it's part of their life.
It's regarded as a very important piece of evidence in Australia for mental illness, because it is the only intact lunatic asylum left that we have.
I mean, would you pull that building down? It's like the Greek Parthenon. Would you pull Greek Parthenon or the pyramids down? Yeah, I mean, look, Australia hasn't got much like old things like that, but there's no worries about that you want them around.
Well, it's just a big white elephant, I suppose. And, well, it costs money.
I would hope that it would never be knocked down, because it's a grand old building.
The other thing that might happen to it in time, and I've seen this happen to a few of the others, and Kew is the perfect example. Kew is the sister asylum in Melbourne, and that was converted to luxury apartments. Now, of course, you wouldn't build luxury apartments in Ararat now, but at least in Kew, you walk around there, you can see the externals of the building. It's beautiful. It's so well looked after.
I think it should be done up and looked after and made into a beautiful hotel.
The bottom line is, we're moving an exhibition into one of the buildings up there as well. You can do whatever you like inside the building. You can put a cafe in, a gymnasium, whatever you want to do. As long as you leave the exterior intact, you can't change it.
Everyone's opinion is that one day it'll just burn down. Someone will torch it and it'll burn down.
I mean, Aradale has a massive appeal to a lot of people.
People all over Australia know Aradale, so it's got a huge amount of history.
I've got a real passion for the place. I've started compiling as many photos of the place, old photos as well as latest photos of the place, and anything I can find on the computer about it. It's part of our history. It really is part of our history. I mean, there's been so much for Ararat that has come through this place. I mean, it's employed so many people. As I said, originally when I first started, it was staffed at 600 people. So you take something like that out of Ararat for as many years as it was here, it's Ararat.
I think it's very much a part of Ararat's heritage, and even Victoria's heritage.
I think it's an icon that belongs in the community. It's been here for 80 years or 100 years. It should stay there.
So, yeah, I find it's a pretty big thing for Ararat. It was. Hopefully one day it might get back to something like that again.